Well, we have just been through 5 weeks, would you believe, in our Bless series. So if you haven't heard any of those or missed any of them, have a look online. They're available on YouTube and on our Facebook page. Have a look at that series. But it was based on the principle, the idea from the book of Genesis, that God has blessed Abraham, and therefore by faith we are like Abraham. And as God has blessed us, it's a spiritual law that we need to bless others, this law of input and output. And we know it in life, how important it is to have input and output. If you're just getting input and no output, it can be dangerous. That's why we get overweight. There's too much input and not enough output. We see it in the nation of Israel. If you've heard this illustration, the River Jordan feeds both the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea. The Sea of Galilee is fertile. There's lots of water life, birds and animals and all sorts of things and things that grow around it. But it feeds into the Dead Sea. And the Dead Sea down the bottom has inlet but no outlet. And the Dead Sea is that because it is dead. It is so salty. It's so salty you can sit back and read a newspaper. It's so buoyant. And if you've been there, you'll know that experience. But it's dead because nothing grows around it. It's so salty. There's no life. It's really hard to get anything to grow because it's all input and no output. And it's this principle in life that if we're always getting and not giving, then it's actually dangerous to us. It can be toxic. If we're always receiving in and never giving out, it can be dangerous. And so that's why we've launched this commitment campaign to just say, what is your level of commitment? And this theme that we've got, the commitment is staying loyal to what you said you were going to do long after the mood you said it in has left you. Because maybe when we were young Christians, we were all excited about how we would serve God and the mood was strong about what we would do. But then we get let down, we get disappointed, we get tired. And maybe the mood is not there anymore. And maybe we didn't carry through on what we said we were going to do. That we would do it with passion and commitment and dedication all through our lives. Now, when I found this little statement, it really spoke to me, and I actually found it also, a number of people had quoted it and used it. Found it by a guy called Harry Taylor. Harry Taylor played for the Geelong football team, the Cats, and followed AFL, watched the games last night, really good games. My family, bless them, I followed Richmond since I was a boy, and my family bought me tickets to the grand final here in Brisbane last year. Harry Taylor and Gary Ablett Jr. retired at that game. That was their very last game. But Harry Taylor, in this tweet that he put up, he talked about that statement. You can see it there. Commitment is staying loyal to what you said you were going to do long after the mood you said it in has left you. But he goes on to say, I signed a pledge before every game, and this was my way of holding myself accountable and ensuring commitment to the values of our team. And he put up this page that he would do, and right at the top of that, this is what it said. Got to get my glasses now. I will give absolutely everything in this game today. I will be the most committed, ruthless, respected, disciplined and honest player on the field. I will keep my focus simple and will push the limits to help my team win. And every game he did that. Every game he had this pledge. And if you see the larger piece of paper, this was the piece of paper that he did. And he would put the date when the game was on and the time and who the opponent was. And he would literally sign that every game. Right through, if you can see it there, because it was 2011, right through to the grand final, which they won. Sorry to beat Collingwood in the final. Terribly sorry to the Collingwood fans. And I look at that and I think, wow. I mean, that level of commitment. And please don't misunderstand me when I say this, because I love my sport. As I said, I watched it yesterday, such close games for the Brisbane and the Melbourne game last night, so I love my footy. But I think they are doing this thing. Harry Taylor, someone like that, is doing this for a game. Now, they're well paid for it, but it's football. In the church, we are about eternity. We're about real things. We're about things that will last forever, long after this world is gone. And I think, what sort of level of commitment do we show to the things of God, to the things of eternity? She'll be right. If I feel it, I'll do it. If not, I'll stay home. Commitment is about staying loyal to what you said you were going to do, even if the mood you said it in is no longer there. When Paul writes to the Corinthian church, 1 Corinthians 9:25, he says, those who compete in the games. Now, we just had the Olympic Games. The Paralympic Games are about to start this week. In Paul's day, they had the games as well. They had the Corinthian Games, they had the Isthmian Games. They would have different events, some events similar to us, some different. They would have a standing broad jump with weights that they would do. So Paul is used to seeing in the games. And he says people who compete in the games go into strict training. They're disciplined, they're committed. But he says they do it to get a reward that is a crown that will not last. It was literally, the branches of a tree all woven together. And that, it wasn't the gold medal or the silver medal or the bronze medal that we get today that, lasts a long time. They literally get this branch stuck on their head. He said that's what they're competing for. And yet we in the church, we're doing this for a crown that will last forever. So he talks about the commitment, the discipline, the training, the trying that we should have in comparison with the athletes that Paul saw in his day in those games. And so before we get to the specific projects, I just want to ask, is there a level of commitment that you've ever had that even approaches Harry Taylor's to sign your name? I will be the best Christian I can this week. I will do what I can. I will lift others up. I will do what the scriptures say. I will build my relationship with God. Have you ever signed a document like that? And I just want to ask, whatever you're doing at the moment, can you raise your level of commitment? If you're involved in the life of the church, if you're giving, can you give more? Can you go to that next level? If you're involved in serving in the rosters, could you do that extra? If you're not involved, could you just join and say, yep, I will be a part of that? If you come to church and it might be 1 out of 3, 2 out of 4, can you say, look, I'll just come a little bit extra. I'll just take that next step in terms of a level of commitment. Because this is important and this has to do with eternal things. Now, on the way in, you would have seen the projects that we have. There's 4 projects. I'll talk about how we'll do that. We'll get out an envelope later. So the 4 projects are these. So first is Centenary House, refurbishment of that, and Sarah's going to come up in a minute and talk about that. Second one is Brave Home. So we're going to talk about the house and home today. And then next week, we'll talk the African ones, the Zimbabwe motorbike and the solar panels for Malawi. Now, I just want to emphasise, the motorbikes we buy will not be like that motorbike. And the Brave Home is not decorated like that home, but you get the idea. So Sarah's going to come up and talk about the refurbishment for Centenary House.
Good morning. First of all, a big thank you to those of you who spotted our Kingdom Kids video on Facebook this week and remembered to pray. Thank you for praying for the kids who are coming along. We have more kids here today than we had last week, so we're praising God for that. A couple of years ago, we took our kids on a road trip to Sydney. At that stage, I think we had a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old. So very little. We decided we would hop, skip, and jump our way down and hop, skip, and jump our way back, kind of having a couple of nights at each stop, because otherwise there was going to be a lot of crying in the car and it might not just be the children. So we stayed in lots of Airbnbs. And who stayed in Airbnbs? Okay, not all Airbnbs are created equal. This is what we learned. So the place we stayed in the Blue Mountains, the scenery was beautiful. We were just down the road from the Three Sisters. We went out to the caves, had a great time. The house that we stayed in, though, it was freezing cold. The heater system didn't work at all. They'd left some food for us, told us we could enjoy anything from the pantry, and when we opened the pantry, everything was at least 5 years out of date. The lasting image for me was that the light fitting in the bathroom was actually a kitchen colander that they just kind of affixed up there, and yeah, we had great memories, we made the most of it, but as parents we were kind of trying to make sure that our little ones were okay, because it kind of gave off a bit of a vibe of this might not be the most 1-year-old friendly house you've ever stayed in. By contrast, the place we stayed in Sydney, the front door was bright hot pink to start with. The kids' bedroom, instead of having carpet, it actually had AstroTurf. And it had a customised bed, which was made to look like a house, with a customised cot, which was also made to look like a cubby house, and a trundle bed underneath. They had toys inside, they had toys outside, they had kids' bookshelves. We found kids' Bibles on their bookshelves. And on the kitchen table, they had this big basket of fresh fruit and fresh baked bakery bread ready for us. And it was, use whatever you like. We had all the plastic cups, everything that we would need to be able to stay there for the week that we were there. We had a library down the road and a park, and we were walking distance to the train station. Not all Airbnbs are created equal. There, we could relax. We could just let the kids be. We knew that if the 1-year-old got into something, it wasn't going to be dangerous for them. It was set up for kids. It felt like home. And that's what we want to create down in Centenary House. We want that space to feel like home, so that when kids and parents walk in, there is that sigh of relief of, I belong here. This is a space for me to come and meet with God and meet with others who love God. I'm safe, I'm cared for, I'm home. So our plan, we've already made a couple of little changes. Very thankful to a podiatrist who gave away the fantastic set of shelves that we've put in. Love a good freebie. We've moved a few things around to create a bit more space in the area, just so that we've got more space for social distancing and more space to play. We would love to be able to paint the walls, give them a fresh coat of paint. We're trying to get more kids' artwork up on the walls, although I tried to race it the other day and dropped a couple of frames, but never mind, they weren't glass because we're making this kid-friendly. They had plastic in them, not glass. So it's okay, we'll patch that up. We'd love to carpet the area. At the moment, it's got a rug down that you can see. Some of the little mats are very slippery on that vinyl floor, so we have to be really careful. We'd love to carpet that area and leave the kitchen space still lino so that we can do messy paint and Play-Doh and all that type of fun stuff over in that space. Without tracking it through the carpet, but just to make it a bit more comfortable for the kids to sit down. Parents, I want to give you a bit of a challenge with this too. This Commitment Sunday isn't just for the adults in our church. Our kids are a part of our church community too. They belong here and they are a part of us as a collective group. So parents, you might like to make a choice of what you would like to commit to support. And then talk with your kids about that. Talk to them about the motorbike that your family is going to support. Especially if you've got a boy or a girl who loves motorbikes, maybe that's something that you would like to talk with them about. The other option is to say, you know what, you're old enough, I'm going to give you your own little budget. Now, it can be as big or small as you like, and you can tell your kids, I want you to think about and pray about these 4 projects. Just because you come to Kingdom Kids doesn't mean you have to support that. I want you to look at the 4 different stations that are set up outside and pray about what God wants you to invest in. And encourage your kids to be part of this commitment, to make a commitment to one of these projects. You might need to chip in some of the dollars to help them out. But get your kids involved, because God can work through them just as much as he works through adults. Help them to see that they can make commitment to God's kingdom work as well.
Well, I'm back again to talk about my favorite missionaries in the whole wide world once again. We've had the opportunity to talk about Brave Home as we've gone along at different times, and I don't know if how many of you know this, but Brave Home exists because of something that happened about 5 years ago. 5 years ago, Steph and Jono were feeling a real prompting of the Lord to serve in some capacity somewhere in the world, and they thought it would be overseas somewhere, and they didn't know for sure. But one night, Jono had a dream. And he had a dream of a man from Cambodia basically saying to him, I mean, it sounds like something out of the book of Acts, but basically he said, come and help us. Come and help us. And interestingly enough, that's when they were down in Logan, serving down there, and a couple of days later, one of the guys in the house came up to Jono and said, you know, Jono, I had a dream about you last night, and it said you were going to Cambodia. So they kind of took that as, well, maybe God's pointing them to Cambodia. And so it was 4 years ago, in this coming October, that they packed up everything, sold everything here, packed up, and went to Cambodia, not exactly certain what God had for them. Things that they thought were going to happen fell apart just before they left. But they knew that they had a calling to go to Cambodia, and so they did. And through trial and error and a lot of connections and a lot of prayer and seeking, excuse me, Brave Home came into being. And we've talked about Brave Home along the way. You know that it exists to allow guys who have done it really tough in life to get a new start. And they get this new start at Brave Home, where they're provided a loving and supportive Christian environment. Excuse me. Jono says that the goals that they have at Brave Home are, first of all, to see young men build their lives in the Lord. Secondly, to give them opportunities to study and to work so that they can begin to have an outlook towards the future. And then finally, they have the goal of them continuing to having come out of very difficult backgrounds and often out of addictions, to see them continuing on to live free and whole into the future. So, and we've talked about this as we've gone along, as we've talked about Brave Home before. But as I thought about today, I thought, those are just facts about the home itself. I thought I'd tell you a story about one of the first guys that was in the Brave Home, a guy by the name of Poon. You pronounce that Poon. Poon was one of the first guys. He was one of the first 2 that came into the house just around 18 months ago. He'd been involved in a ministry called Teen Challenge outside of Cambodia, or outside of Phnom Penh. Somehow Jono, being Jono, made a connection with this group, and they talked about how that they needed a place for their guys. Having spent a year at Teen Challenge, they needed a place where they could go on. And Jono said, "Well, that's kind of what we're dreaming of." And so Poon put his hand up to be one of the first 2 to come into the house. And not long after Poon had come into the house, and his connection not only with Teen Challenge but also with Jono in the house, something pretty amazing happened in that he was baptized into Christ. That's him there. A great day. A great day, as you can imagine. A young guy who thought he had no future began to have a future as he gave his life to Christ. And it was the first baptism that's happened to the guys in Brave Home. He's gone on. Then he's been in the life of the of Brave Home all along. He's since his baptism. He's lived in the home. Every day by day he's participated each week in the worship and the life of the home. This is just one of their gatherings. As you can see, it's not just the guys in the home. They have other team members, other Brave team members, as well as people just from the neighborhood who come and join them for prayer and worship that happens weekly in the house. And again, that Poon's been a part of that and has been even giving some leadership recently into that. But not only is Poon living there, but the idea was also that he needed a way to go forward into the future. And Jono, again, through his connections, managed to link him up with an apprenticeship that is basically repairing motorbikes. Now, if you've ever been to a third world Asian country, you know that motorbikes are they're there, to say the least. And he's never going to be having a problem finding work to do. And again, the gentleman that Poon works with is a Christian guy who came to Cambodia to create this kind of thing. So it becomes kind of a connection between the two to make a good work and provide Poon with a future and something a skill that he will be able to take with him for the rest of his life. But to take all of that, and perhaps the cherry on top of this is that 2 weeks ago, Poon got married. Earlier this year, he met a Christian girl who lives in Jono and Steph's neighborhood, and they obviously had some chemistry, and just 2 weeks ago, they got married. And that's meant that Poon has basically graduated from the house. He's going to be living in the neighborhood, just a couple of doors down from Steph and Jono. And he's now going to be, even though he's married, he's going to continue to volunteer at Brave Home, and I guess in some way to pay it forward. He's been blessed by what's happened there. This is going to be his wife. He's going to help train some other guys how to do an apprenticeship in motorcycle repair and some other things. So I just love the trajectory of Poon's story. A guy that started off with very little hope and very little future, and over the last, in a very short period of time, in 18 months, he's come to Christ, and he's had an experience that has set him up for the rest of his life. And he's very thankful to the Lord for what's going on. And I just say, my friends, that whatever support that you provide for Brave Home continues to make possibilities like this a reality. Currently, Brave Home has 2 men that are there. There were 3, but with Poon's going, they're down to 2. And Jono told me that they have 2 more coming next month. So the work is still small, but it's only been 18 months and already bearing great fruit. So we just, on behalf of Steph and Jono, just thank you for your ongoing support for them. I'll close on a personal note for the Baileys. Steph and Jono, like I said, will have been in Cambodia for an unbroken period of 4 years in October. They were scheduled to come back last year, but like everything else with COVID, plans get wrecked, and they've had to stay. And they had to make a big decision about staying, and they felt very strongly that the Lord told them to stay. And it's interesting, it's been a challenge for them to stay, and they've had some big issues, but I think I told you this last time. With their staying and listening to what God had told them to do, they've had their most fruitful period of ministry that they've had in their 4 years. And I believe it's established the foundation for the work of Brave Home going forward. Their willingness to make a hard decision to stick it out. And then finally, just many of you will know this, but just a reminder, Steph's pregnant. And she's expecting their third child in December. And they thought they might be able to come home to do that, but it looks like that they're going to have a Cambodian baby. So anyway, please continue to pray for them. And thank you for your support.
More grandbabies to visit around the world. Could Poon fix our motorbike? Oh, don't worry. Well, look, the way the commitment campaign works is this. Today you would have got the envelope, and last week you would have got the big sheet. So have a look at that. So you've heard verbally today, and next week there'll be 2 more verbal presentations and some pictures about what the projects are about. So if you have a look at the envelope, have a look at that for me now. If you can grab that out now. So if you see on the envelope, there's actually 5 slots. There is Malawi Solar, Zimbabwe Motorbike, Brave Home and Centenary House. And I've talked to someone through the week, and through the week they said, oh, look, I've just been reading the brochure and that one really grabbed me. It was like, wow, that was, I want to give to that already. And that may happen this week or next week. There may be something there that goes, yep, that really grabs me. I'd like to give to that. Or you might like to split your gift over all of them and assign an equal amount or an unequal amount. It's up to you. We're not saying how much that you have to give. We just want to give you amounts. So next week when we do the solar panels, they're $100 a unit. For every $100 that we can give 1 unit. If we get $2.50 for Centenary House, that's what we can use for the refurbishment. If we get $2,000, that's what money we use. The one at the top is a general one. And if you don't want to specify, but you just want to give generally, and between the elders and the mission team, we'll sort of work out where to top up one or, something like that. So what we're asking you to do in the next couple of weeks, so the actual commitment Sunday, the day is in 2 weeks' time, the 5th of September, Father's Day. So we're asking you to bring that envelope then. If you want to give cash, put the cash in the envelope, designate where you want it to be given towards, and then we will have a time early in the service where we bring the money forward. If you want to give electronically, if you want to do a direct debit, then do that before the Sunday, and we'd love you to indicate that on the card. It's all the one account number, but the reference will be different. That's the key thing. Make the reference different. That way we can assign that and make sure the money gets to that. So the reference numbers are there and in that brochure as well. So make sure you grab a copy of that. And over the next couple of weeks, just like Sarah said, in your family, just have a talk about that, have a pray about that, or what grabs you, where you would like to give towards. That's on the 5th. Then on the 12th, what we'd like to do is just announce the totals. We'll add those up through the week and just have a real celebration of what God has done amongst us so that we can see that these projects have been funded. We have applied to Churches of Christ in Queensland that in the budgeting that they did, they had set aside $100,000 towards a mission project that they're now no longer able to fund. And so they've asked the churches, if you have a mission project that you'd like to do, apply for this grant and we will match it dollar for dollar. Now, I know they're oversubscribed and it was up to $7,500, but we will know, unfortunately, not until the offering day whether we're successful at that. But it's possible that whatever money that you give will be matched dollar for dollar by Churches of Christ in Queensland. So that, if you think, I can't afford a full solar panel and that I can give 50, there's a good possibility that $50 will go towards an extra one. Or if you want to support Brave Home but you think, well, $100 is not all that much, there's a possibility that $100 from Churches of Christ can go to match that and double your gift. So think about that when you give. We'll announce that as soon as we know, but that's what we've applied for with Churches of Christ. So I hope that's clear. If you've got any questions, there's a question and answer thing on the back of this, just about all those questions that you might have. If you're not sure, talk to us afterwards. Otherwise, we'll wrap up in prayer now, and you can have a look at the displays out there, and we'll have conversations about what's involved in that. Why don't we pray? Father, thank you that you are a great God. And when we think of the commitment of people like Harry Taylor and other sports people for their cause, Lord, we know you're far more worthy, you're far more honourable, you're far more deserving of our praise and our thanks than a mere premiership or a grand final. So, Lord, challenge us about our own commitment, challenge us about how committed we are to eternal things versus the time and effort and energy and gifts we put towards things that will not last. Thank you for the people that we've heard from today and even the ones tomorrow where there is a great commitment in a difficult circumstance that they're giving towards these eternal things, that are changing the trajectory of people's lives, that are helping meet immediate needs and help people point towards eternal issues. So help us to respond in ways that is worthy of our calling. Because, Lord, you are worthy of every song that we could ever sing, every praise that we could ever bring. We give it to you. In Jesus' name, amen.